as for the president, I don't know. It's just, I don't know what I would say to him, I guess. Just, just hope he ain't like the rest.
Walk your talk.
Because his skin color isn't going to determine that. It's his actions. It isn't his race that's going to make him a better man. It's his actions. It's what he's going to do for the people. And him not being, having no clue about our people, I'm, a little worried. How is he going to know? How is he ever going to comprehend even just seeing this, How is he going to know? No one will ever truly know unless you're here and you see it and you meet the people. So to the president, I just would say, just the best for him and his family. I just hope he proves that he is a good man with his actions, the right actions. And the rest of the world, we Ogallala's were here always.
Well, when I was a youngster, Ryan Deloria Jr. and many other philosopher-type novelists would make statements about how if you don't keep your word, there's not much to be said for you. And I think that still holds true. I do think this country has an obligation to Native people. And I do think that there's some karma to be fixed. And I don't think the past is dead. And I do think that we do learn from our past. And that needs to be righted. Now, I will tell you, there's a breathtaking decision out of the Federal Court of Claims on a woman here from the Pine Ridge Reservation who was disrespected, shall we say, by a military recruiter. And that assault occurred right here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. He was not prosecuted by federal authorities. However, the woman did sue him civilly in the Federal Court of Claims, and she just received a judgment. It's almost $600,000, and it is based on the 1868 treaty, the bad man clause, that says if there's bad men that come amongst us, the U.S. government is responsible. And that was really gratifying that she wanted justice, and she does feel somewhat vindicated. We don't have to be ashamed as a people about what's going on. We need resources. When my brother tells me that $10 million could make a big difference here, and $10 million is a drop in the bucket to this country, there's something wrong. So, I appreciate President Obama making those statements, and I hope that his policy and practice will bear that out. And resources are going to be a big part of it. There needs to be restitution made. And that is about rebuilding our communities. And I said, I said, we're in the democracy here. Could we be occupied, please? We want to get occupied again. We want a soccer field, too. But we are, in essence, we're a post-war state where there's been no rebuilding. There's been no reconstruction. And that's really what we need. Now, whether this country is willing to make the financial investment that is necessary to rebuild our communities remains to be seen. I sure think, honestly, in the long run, I think it would be way cheaper than having all of our men in prison. And you look at, even just providing close to no services to Indigenous people is still a chunk of change. You would think that just increasing that for a few generations to really pull us out of it.
A veil of ignorance that covers our face. And that is, everybody in Indian country and our leaders would always say the treaties are the law of the land. What they don't realize, if you look at treaties starting from 1805, 1805 treaty was one of the first ones that Sioux signed. For the Oglalas, they allegedly signed that in 1825. In 1825, Article 1 says that we admit to the superiority of the United States and follow under its protection, and we will only trade with them. In other words, kicking the French out. It's no longer their economy, it's the Americans. From that point, 1835 treaty superseded and abrogated 1825. 1838 treaty abrogated with the other Sioux 1835 treaty. And you can go on up to the latter. For the Great Sioux Nation, 1851 treaty defined a specific geographical area, which took in 48 million acres or more. That was abrogated with the 1868 treaty. In 1871, the Congress decided through the Indian Appropriation Act to, if they were going to appropriate money, then they will no longer sign treaties with Indian nations. That is an abrogation because it has to do with the Constitution of the United States. Abrogation of both for the American people and a treaty-making body. So they allowed that. 1877 taking of the Black Hills, now called Docket 74 and 8, superseded all the other treaties. It just knocked it in the head. And that became the law of the land. And then the 1889, the Great Sioux, as a congressional act. Congressional acts do not supersede treaties because you do not see a Bureau of Russian Affairs. You don't see a Bureau of Land Office there. You don't see Bureau of Israeli Affairs. You don't see any of these that the United States signed a treaty with and have a Bureau of whatever affairs there. They have a Bureau of Indian Affairs here. We're the only nation in the world for 100 and some years that's been governed by Congressional Act, which the Bureau has created. We now live on what you call the Indian Reorganization Act. Howard Wheeler, 2 senators, 1934, introduced that. The only piece of treaty land we have today is called one of the 8 reservations. The rest have all been ceded and abrogated, all the treaties. That's why I said we need an audience. And where did that stem from? Well, that stemmed from an antiquated papal bull, 2 of them, Inquisition and the one that condoned slavery by Alexander VI, Pope Alexander. We need that audience today so that they rescind that to let us know in everybody's world that we're human. We no longer are slaves. And with the State Department, President, the Senate, so we could sit down and now hammer out something for our future. Otherwise, you're not going to have democracy as they portray it, because it forces us by Congressional Act to be subservient to administrative policies and everything. So yeah, we have a real good master plan, and that would be part of sustainability. But until that day comes, it's going to be pretty tough.
It's a pretty cash society, and people are, using the understanding of the value of property and the definition of an asset is non-existent. Mm-hmm. And equity, people have no idea what equity is. Mm-hmm. And with all the tribal housing and stuff, there's no opportunity for someone to gain wealth through wise investment. And we've got to bring in opportunities for that to happen. The federal government, all of the programs, everything that's happened over the last 30 to 40 years is actually, when we're pushing democracy on the world, wanting democracy in Iraq and Iran, they're pushing socialism in Indian country because they want the tribes to take over taking care of individual Indians by developing tribal businesses. Mm-hmm. Instead of letting individuals develop business and developing economy.
If I were to say anything to President Obama, it would be I send thanks for what he said he was going to do for the First Nation people, and I hope he holds true to his promises, because it's important that they really look at what happened to these nations that over the years were. There were so many nations on this continent before the Euro America came. And a lot of them are gone now. I mean, you know, sometimes I feel like maybe we should be put on the endangered species list, because that's the way people look at us sometimes. That you know, we're just you know, a species, and